Zombie apocalypse games are great for many reasons, but the main one for me is the fact that they usually feature cooperative multiplayer. If you have watched most of my reviews, you will have noticed that I usually play games in order to relax rather than to compete. So co-op games are my favorite ones because I can play them with my wife, with my friends, and when I speak of zombie apocalypse games, I keep remembering the great times I've had with games like Left 4 Dead, Dead Island, and Dying Light. Those games were so much fun and I have actually enjoyed all of them at least once, but most of them I have replayed multiple times. So naturally when I heard of Overkill's The Walking Dead, I got excited. I'm a fan of the TV show, but knew that the game is its own thing, and that was actually a good sign. Games based on movies rarely end up being any good, so if I hear that the game will deviate from the movie significantly, I'm full of hope. I grabbed 2 copies and I summoned my wife to the computers. Right after the start, we had noticed that the game is attempting to be a lot more RPG based than you would think. Not only do your characters level up, but they also collect gear and materials with which to upgrade their camp. The problem with that is evident very soon. Most things in the game are tied together. You need to upgrade your camp in order to unlock more upgrades for your skills. You need skill points in order to unlock the skills which have become available through your camp upgrades, etc. The level of complexity can actually be quite frustrating because you may have skill points but not enough resources in order to upgrade your camp and thus enable more upgrades for your character, so that you are stuck with your skill points scratching your head but unable to place them in anything useful. Even the second mission in the game can be a serious challenge for 2 low-level heroes, so you end up grinding in order to upgrade some things and increase your chance of success. Each character has a signature skill, which is somewhat useful and tied to a cooldown, but they also have a signature crafting item, such as a Molotov cocktail or a smoke grenade. These are more useful but need to be crafted during each level, and the materials are scarce. Oftentimes you face the choice between crafting a Molotov or a health item. Then there is one more tool you have to consider, your specialized tool. Those are things such as lockpicks and other similar devices which grant access to certain places and boxes. How often there will be a lock for a specific tool is random on each map, and each player can only choose one tool to craft during the map. This means that planning is crucial, but since the most important factor here is luck, planning is only relevant in a 4-man group. If you have a full group, each of the players can have a different tool, granting the group effectively access to anything on the map, since your team will carry tools capable of opening any lock the game can throw at you. As I have mentioned, the game wants you to replay missions because you need to grind. Not only because you most likely will have to due to the fact that the missions are quite hard to finish, but also because you are going to need a ton of experience and resources in order to build up your camp and level up your characters. During your missions, you can find survivors and take them along with you. If you succeed in rescuing them, they can join your camp. You can then send those survivors on missions of their own. This gives them a chance to level up and gather some resources for the camp. The problem is that as you play and replay missions, the in-game days are actually passing. After a few such days, you have to pay resources for the camp's upkeep. If you fail to gather enough and save up for that, the camp's morale drops. When that happens, your saved survivors have a much lower chance of success on their missions and a much higher chance of injury or even death. In case of the former, you can heal them for some resources. In case of the latter, you have lost them. The survivors have another function as well. If you manage to level them up enough, you can place them in some of the camp's buildings, which will give you small passive bonuses, and those bonuses can be quite useful. Consider, however, that this is an endgame thing that we're talking about right now. It is pretty much impossible to get any of that at the beginning of the game. You put these guys at low level in these camp structures, they will grant you nothing. So it's more of a second playthrough kind of scenario. Now that I have explained some of the menu gameplay mechanics, let's move back to the actual levels. Your characters can use a variety of weapons and mods for them. You get a weapon and a mod in a case, but cannot actually see what it is when you gather or rather loot the case on the map. You have to carry the mod to the escape vehicle at the end of the mission, and once you exit the level, the game shows you the weapon coming out of a loot box, because you essentially collect a box with something in it. The human enemies have guns on them and even drop them upon death, but these guns cannot be looted in any way because, I don't know, for some reason your guys do not want to touch the enemy's weapons. They're there on the floor with ammo and everything, and you might be dying and be without any munition, but no, those weapons are just decorative, cannot be picked up. There are very few weapon cases within the levels, and your character level will determine the chance of getting higher quality weapons. For example, within your first 10 character levels, you should be happy if you get anything that is the color green or even blue. While the selection of weapons is quite big, each character has a preference and thus will work much better with certain types of weapons. This is a huge problem because it will mean that switching to a different style of weapon will effectively penalize the player by disabling some of the beneficial effects from special skills. Another problem is noise. Noise is the enemy in this game. You have 3 levels of zombie awareness in it, and those levels will indicate how many zombies will come at you and how much time there will be between waves. It doesn't specifically say that, but you will notice a huge increase in the simple waves by making more noise and reaching a higher awareness level. Making noise will slowly but surely increase that awareness level. Most weapons can use suppressors, which will negate the noise, but those suppressors break extremely fast, and then you have the option to either go loud or use a melee weapon. If you choose the latter, be aware that your character has a limited amount of stamina, and once it's over, you are a helpless slug. You cannot hit, you cannot shove zombies aside if they get too close and you move slowly. Naturally, the levels are designed in such a way that you will constantly be attacked from multiple directions, making melee defense a dangerous endeavor in most cases. This is especially true if you have reached a level 3 zombie awareness horde. Another issue is that there is never enough ammo available, so going out with guns blazing is discouraged for that reason as well. Seeing how the game also offers the option to stealth kill enemies, it becomes clear that the preferred way of playing most levels would be the sneaking one, right? That sounds logical. But once you start playing, you will realize that the developers don't agree with that at all. First of all, your enemies will use unsuppressed weapons. Yes, that's right. You will never be having any enemy with a suppressed weapon. Apparently the others are not scared of zombies. It's only you. However, the game considers the noise they make just as much as the noise you make. So you could attempt to be a silent ninja, but these assholes will still raise the zombie awareness level regardless. As if that's not bad enough, but the levels are designed in such a way that you will have no choice but to engage the human enemies in gunfights. It's pretty much impossible to finish a single level without being in a firefight. And even if you do manage to not break your suppressors, it won't matter because the enemies will make enough noise while shooting at you anyway. At the end of each level, you have to signal your getaway driver via flare. The flare makes noise and will raise zombie awareness by 1 level. No matter, if you were like completely quiet, which would not be possible, but if you were on level 2, you'll go to level 3 automatically. It's not like when you fire a gun and it increases it slightly and you don't hit the upper level. It increases by 1 level in any case. Considering that you have no other choice, you must do this. You must fire up the flare to call your getaway driver, or the mission cannot be ended. That's made twice as idiotic by the fact that you are in a constant radio contact with your camp, as well as the actual driver, who will even nag you to hurry up and come to him once he has arrived. There is literally no reason for you to actually having to fire that flare. The guys know where you are. The guys on the radio you're talking to, they're constantly literally telling you where to go next, as if they see you on a radar. When the guy is coming with his car, the getaway driver, you hear him on the radio saying, "I'm on my way, I'll be right there." So why would I fire a flare? Everyone knows where I am. I just, radio the guy and tell him, "Hey guy, I don't want to make so much noise. It sucks. So how about you just come over the radio, like I just told you, get over here." The guy's like, "Nah man, I want that flare. Flare or no, extraction." This is where I want to mention the objectives as well. There are 2 types of missions. One involves staying in your camp and defending from invading waves of enemies who spawn at different points all over the map. The other type is the more interesting one, where you have a mission that requires you to go from one end of the map to the other end, and then bring something to the getaway driver. So you get the quest item and you bring it. The latter type is divided into main and side missions. The main ones are story related, while the side ones usually cover a slightly smaller part of the main maps and are quicker to do with a simple objective. It could be to kill a specific NPC or to steal some item, but those are okay to do on your own. When it comes to the main missions, they are designed to be played by 4 people. If you choose to play with less, you're going to have a really bad time. First of all, the missions are hard enough as it is, and they even feature a difficulty slider which can be moved up but not down. This means that a story mission has an obligatory difficulty which you can choose to play it at, and after you've replayed the mission, you can replay the mission at a harder difficulty, but you can never make it easier. So as you progress through the story, the mission difficulty will increase, and at some point you'll be forced to even play missions on the highest difficulties with no option to make them any easier. You don't get that option in general. You only get to reduce the difficulty to the original one that the mission was offered to, but the later missions are always offered at the highest difficulty anyway. As I have mentioned, you are expected to play in a team of 4, but should you not have 3 buddies who can play with you, you can always try the missions on your own. Other games will then offer you a few AI buddies to even up the odds again. Games such as Left 4 Dead, for example, you're alone, so you get 3 bots with you. This is not the case in Overkill's The Walking Dead. Here you literally have to go on your own. This is made bad enough by the fact that there will be a path and boxes which will require special kits to open, which you cannot have, but that's not even the worst of it. And let me just explain that to you again. I've mentioned earlier, you have these special kits like lockpicks, mechanics kit, chem kit, and parts of the map where you enter. You have the standard route where you can go, and then you have the side route which you can, for example, enter by using a lockpick to pick a lock and enter there. Now that you can forget if you don't have specifically, let's say, the lockpick. If you were 4 guys and each of you took one of the different 4 options, then there always will be one guy. So that means that as you play alone, you actually have to take the standard route unless you have a 1 in a 4 chance that it will be your thing that is required. That means that in 75% of the cases, you will actually have to take the harder route, although you're playing alone already. Now, this is not the worst thing here, however. The one worst thing is that you need 4 people for finishing the mission because you have 4 quest items which need to be transported to the escape vehicle. The funny thing is you can only carry 1 at a time. So either you have 4 people who bring the item, you fight through the last horde, it's already awareness level 3 because the stupid flare and the stupid human enemies were having a gunfight with you and with the zombies and alerted the horde and everything. And if you're 4 guys, you go to the getaway card, everyone throws in the quest item, and you leave and you succeeded. But if you are alone, you do that whole thing and then you fight your way back and get the second item and then fight to the car again, drop it, fight your way back for the 3rd and so 4th times. So it is so much harder. It's ridiculous how they've made it. They didn't even lower the difficulty when you're alone or less people. You have to do it multiple times. The less players, the harder, the more screwed you are, which is absurd. But the craziest part about all of this is that the objective will not even be explained that properly. When I and my wife were playing for the first time, we reached the quest items and the objective stated that we have to get the quest items. We both took 1 out, and there were 4, and the quest indicator showed 2 out of 4. So now we assume that it is impossible to get all 4 unless you have 4 players. The crazy thing is that the game didn't even explain that you can drop items. Like at no point was it said press G to drop items that you're carrying. There's no such thing. And it's funny because if you happen to have weapons mod or a weapons case that you have looted earlier by opening a locked box, that is considered an item as well. You need to throw that away in order to get a quest item. So you need to call in your getaway driver, throw the weapons mod in, and then go back and start picking up the quest items, which is also ridiculous. Imagine you have one of those mods for the first time on your back. The game never explains you can throw it on the floor or that it takes the slot that is needed for the quest item. So you go to a quest item and it's like you have no space to carry it, and you start scratching your head wondering what's going on if the game's bugged. So it's absurd. It's just absolutely ridiculous. We both took 1 out, as I said, and we couldn't take the other 2 for the longest time, and we had to quit the mission. We thought it bugged or something crazy like that happened. I had to Google it, found out that you have to take a quest item, then drop it, then take another, then drop that one, and this needs to be done 4 times for the game to register all 4 quest items as having been held by a player once at least, and then you get the prompt to actually call the getaway driver. Until then, nothing like that happens. Many players complained on forums that they thought it was impossible to complete this second mission because of that. How was this not noticed during the development time? This game was in early access before. it's just crazy. It was in early access for many months and they just missed it. But guess what? Once you have called in the extraction, you have to carry each item to the escape vehicle individually, like I described before. And don't forget again that this applies just as much for any weapons crates or mod crates that you're carrying. So, you know, add those to the rounds you have to make. This means that in case you're playing alone, let me just recap, you might be expected to run from your place to the car 4 or 5 times at least. It's just crazy. Now add having to protect a slow and brain dead NPC who you are rescuing, and you will see the absurdity of it all. Now you will probably ask, what NPC, what is this all about? Well, I did mention you can have survivors. So you find a survivor in the middle of the map and you can actually tell them to follow you. And you have to protect that survivor. Survivor is much slower than you. If you go too far, the survivor will just, you know, crouch and wait for you to come back and pick them up again. So they're slower. They can be attacked and, you know, eaten by zombies. They will not die, but they will be knocked down, and you need to go fend off the zombies. Then, you know, help them up, which takes like a small loading bar to fill. And then we start over. So imagine you got this guy that you need to also bring to the car safely while transporting all of this, and you're gonna get the picture of how crazy this all is. This is just so absurd. Playing with less people earns you a heavy penalty, making the game so much harder. Me and my wife had to replay the second mission 8 times before we managed to finally beat it. Trust me, playing the same mission over and over and over again gets really boring and annoying. And the worst part is that the game is actually designed to be played this way. You get very little experience and materials, so you are supposed to grind the missions. You play it, and even if you don't finish it, you still get some experience and stuff. The worst part is that you need to upgrade one of your buildings in order to gain access to more map regions. Which means that if you have not done that, you could actually finish the second mission, and now you have not enough materials, or rather you lack materials, to be able to build that building in your camp, which then scouts ahead and reveals part of your strategic map and shows you the next mission. You have to upgrade that building, but you don't have the materials. So what's your conclusion? You have to go back to that mission that you just finished playing after so many attempts and grind materials. You replay it again and again, although you have passed it, in order to have enough materials to upgrade your camp, and then see the next mission and attempt that one. It's out of this world. Who thought this is fun? Until then, you are stuck. Be aware that the main game only has, if you count the main missions, which are essentially the main maps, 10 maps. And I'm being generous here. I think it's actually 9 maps, because the first one is just a tutorial map. It doesn't even count to me. Speaking of the maps, and actually it's not maps, it's missions. The maps are even less. You get some missions, the defense missions that you play, you get to play them and replay them multiple times. And I just want to mention the defense missions because I'm at it right now. You do have these missions where you have to stay in camp, and there are waves of enemies attacking your camp, and you have to kill them before they place bombs or steal your supplies, supposedly. And besides the fact that it's just tedious and boring, it poses the question what sort of survivors your guys are. They're absolute super idiots. Because, and I mean this, their camps are not secure in any way. The enemies are coming literally from everywhere. Their entrances everywhere. If you look at the movies, the camps were always positioned in some prison or some other place, some place that is secure. These guys always have their camp in an open place, like in a shipyard or something, without any fences. Everyone's coming in like it's nothing. It's crazy. And I want to talk about the main mission maps, the ones that are not the camp defenses. This is the time where I'm gonna praise the game. Actually, the maps are quite good, and although there are tunnels through which you advance, they offer a few branching paths. These are randomly selected. That was quite a smart choice because it creates the appearance of playing a slightly different level when the path branches out to a different direction. This way, replaying the maps doesn't feel quite so bad as first. You also have a small side objective, such as fueling a generator in order to open a path, finding parts for a forklift, that kind of stuff comes back from time to time, and it's again reminiscent of things like Left 4 Dead, but it is entertaining and it gives you a side objective and some reason why you're stuck in a giant hole with zombies. There are small tasks which force you to stay in a place and deal with the zombies while collecting parts without or just pressing various buttons, stuff like that. It is good. It creates tension and forces the player to make difficult decisions. Should we spread out and take care of the objectives faster before we get swarmed by the horde, or should we stick together and advance safely but at a lot slower and risking being overwhelmed by the constant appearance of more zombies, because the zombies are infinite. And speaking of the zombies, let me tell you how I feel about them. The zombies are simultaneously the best and the worst aspect of this game. First of all, let me mention the types. You have your regular run-of-the-mill slow walking zombie. They will waddle towards you and try to get a bite of that tasty brain of yours. Then you have the dragging ones. Those are essentially the same waddling zombies who have been crippled or spawned as such and will drag on the floor. These guys can be quite dangerous because they're harder to see and hit, especially if you're clearing a horde, because they will drag to the dead zombies and be more or less covered by the bodies. Then you have to use your skills to shoot them amongst the bodies, and it can be quite difficult even to see them, so they are dangerous. Lastly, you have your energetic ones, and when I say lastly I mean amongst normal zombies. The energetic ones move faster and try to surprise you. They are more than twice as fast as the other ones, but still not too scary when in smaller groups. And then we have the special bloaters. Those are really fat and slow zombies who will pop once they come close enough to you and take enough damage. So there are two options: either they come close to you and they blow themselves up, or you shoot them a bunch of time and then they explode. The explosion will hurt the zombies around them as well as it will hurt you. It will also cover your screen for a few seconds and make it so that you can neither see anything nor walk fast enough, because they leave guts on the floor and your character is kind of slow on these guts. And these guts will stay for a while, so even after you can see, if you cross that path, you're slow. So as you can see, there aren't too many zombie types and they are not necessarily following the TV series closely. I have not read the comics, so I cannot say if that is perhaps how things are in there. However, they do nail two things perfectly. The first thing is rather positive. They've managed to make a slow, waddling horde of zombies feel threatening without need of a large variety of super zombies. Besides the bloater, everything else is quite the usual zombie type, yet still being overrun by the amounts of zombies is a possibility and as such can create tension. They have nailed that part. You have to shoot the zombies in the head as well. They will not die otherwise unless you blow them up or set them on fire with a Molotov. So this definitely ups the difficulty and can create stress situations. Where they have failed is the spawn of these zombies. This is something we've always made fun of when watching the TV shows. I call them stealth zombies. You know how the characters are on their own in a seemingly open environment and suddenly there is a zombie behind them? Well, they've nailed that too, much to my annoyance. The zombies will spawn constantly and in the most idiotic and blatant ways. Zombies will spawn right behind you, zombies will spawn in front of you, although you see that there's nothing and suddenly out of nowhere in front of your eyes zombies will appear, etc. In many buildings you will see doors being broken down and hordes coming out of them. This is fine on the normal levels, but when it comes to the camp defense levels there is absolutely no logic for it, but it happens. I mean, would people really choose a place with 10 entrances with their camp? I've spoken about this, I know, but I want to speak about it again because you have to put some thought into your game design. You can't just do it because you say, well, you know, this is easier because I want to make it so that the levels are fun. Obviously, a horde of zombies that's coming only from one entrance, after a while, you know, it's just gonna be monotonous. We want the character to run around and fight from all sides, have some stress. But, I don't know. Think of the Walking Dead movies again. The survivors usually establish bases in prisons and other heavily fortified locations, which usually have only one entrance and are thus easily defended. The game's not like this. The levels have a multitude of traps in them, ranging from bear traps which catch you in place, noise traps which attract zombies, shotgun traps which will shoot you, Molotov traps, and other traps. The good thing is that these traps will be triggered by zombies as much as by you. The bad thing is that at times they appear in places where they make no sense, such as an enemy base. There is no logic in placing traps in places where you would have your people patrol. Granted, I only managed to find a few such cases, but it still felt stupid. Now let's talk about the game's story. I didn't mention how the game has nothing to do with the TV show, and it is true. You will also not meet any of the characters from it. The main reason why the show is so successful is because of its great story, so I was hoping for a good story here. At this point, it will be no surprise to anyone that I was very disappointed in that aspect as well. The story is generic and extremely boring. It feels like the levels were designed first and then a story was added by adapting it to the levels. Not only that, but the presentation is boring as hell. Most of the story is told during the loading screen by one narrator. You get to enjoy simple still images while listening to the narration. That's it. It's so extreme that at one point something relevant apparently happens, and that relevant thing happens off screen. You never see it, and you hear of it later during the loading screen of the next level. And at first I was confused and thought that we had somehow missed it, and we were even replaying the previous mission later on to see if we did, but no, nothing. It's just a mention of a very important key moment, which the narration of the next mission just, mentions like it's, oh, by the way, it's talked about, but you never see it, you never witness it. It's so weird. If you look at the game's trailer, you can see an animated video of the characters, and so you would think that they would make a few of those in game, but no luck. And it's so weird again because there are several of these videos. They made multiple such trailers, well animated and very interested, but they didn't bother to do one for at least this very important iconic key moment of the game. Nope, you don't get that. You get symbolic still images with narration by one voice actor in the background, that's it. This is one of the laziest and at the same time lamest ways of telling a story within a game that I have seen lately. Not to mention the game ends in a cliffhanger and with several territories of your map still covered in fog, indicating that they are not yet unlocked. Well, they will be by DLC, I suppose. This is where I want to also talk about the technical aspects of the game. One of the first things I've noticed when I started the game was that it does not support ultra-wide aspect ratios. Neither 21:9 nor 32:9 were supported off the bat. You had to edit a file within the game if you want to have a larger, game so that it can fit your monitor. So if you got a big monitor and you use 21:9 or 32:9, then you're gonna have a hard time with this. You have to edit an ini file. It's not the end of the world, but it's strange because according to people online, this was actually possible within the game during early access. So when they released the game, they removed that feature. I think it was added with a recent patch, but I'm not sure because I fixed it in advance, and so I wouldn't be able to tell if now the game can do it natively without me having to modify files again. The game has very low loading screens. Even with an SSD you will have to be patient. Now an SSD will help significantly, but in general you will notice that there are loading screens, and they've tried to mask that with the narration, but they're not slightly interesting, they're not interesting at all, so the narration is really not useful to you. The visuals are very nice and they run very well in terms of frames per second. But I did crash once, so it's not perfect. The bugs are rare, but when they happen, they usually ruin your current run. I have been killed by bloaters, which exploded behind a door or a wall and killed me either way. The specific example with the door, somehow the bloater exploded even before I attempted to open the door. So I see a door, I'm walking towards it, and I hear an explosion and I die. And it turns out that he somehow saw me through the wall and door and decided to pop and kill me through said wall and door. The enemies threw frag grenades at me and killed me, although I was behind solid cover. So frag grenades in this game, the thing that you cannot use by the way, but the enemies have, is super deadly. You cannot even cover from it. You gotta run away from this thing. There's no safety from it if it's within range, even if you're behind a concrete wall. Enemies have shot me through walls by simply clipping a hand with a gun in through and shooting me down. This is actually hilarious because I'm taking damage. I know I'm in a close place and I see nobody in, and I look to the side as I'm dying and I see this hand clipping through the wall and shooting me with a gun. That's crazy. Both zombies and living enemies will notice you at times, although you are behind them and crouching. So the game does offer a stealth, but it doesn't work at all times. Sometimes you're behind the zombie, you don't get that stealth kill indicator. You cannot do it for some reason. In other words, the game is a mess. At first we went in full of hope and expecting to have a great time. After all, it looked so promising. Sadly, the developers have sacrificed most of what makes these games fun and replaced it with grinding and ridiculously high difficult levels, which scales up as the number of players decreases, creating a ridiculously unfair handicap. I wanted to love this game and forced myself to play through it. I finished the story, unlocked the hidden character, leveled her up from the start, and even got her some decent gear. Me and my wife spent many hours playing this game, and there were lots of fun moments. I won't lie to you, Once you start getting used to it, you can squeeze some fun out of it. But for every one of these fun moments, there were 3 that sucked. No matter how hard we tried, we still couldn't fall in love with this game. And the DLC does not change much. You pay for this DLC and you get a, I will admit, significantly modified map, but it is an old map. It's an old map that you got to play once, and the story in it is again not good. I mean, I did not enjoy it. It's harder. I gotta say, this is a very hard map. They made it even harder, yes. But this isn't Dark Souls. What are they gonna say? Our game sucks so bad, is so hard, you're gonna die and love it. You know, prepare to die. Overkill's The Walking Dead. Prepare to die a million times. Prepare to grind. It doesn't work. Dark Souls did it once. It worked for them, but don't try to copy it. It's not working here. Or at least make it more fair. Overkill's The Walking Dead is an ambitious project which fails to deliver on almost every possible level. It looks great and manages to create an intimidating horde of zombies, but for most of the time it's just not fun to play. I cannot recommend this game even to those who love zombie games and movies, simply because I see myself as one such person and I ended up hating the game. So, you know, even if you are like me, you probably hate the game too. As I end this review, I wish to say that I am above all disappointed. I really wanted to like this game. I enjoy this kind of games and I was looking forward to finding another one that'd be fun. A pity really. But at least I hope this review will be informative and entertaining to my viewers. I wish to thank you for watching it and hearing me out. I understand that not everyone will agree with my points, although I think that since I've taken a look around what the other people think of this game, most people will. But it would be interesting to see, so if it's not too much to ask for, leave me a comment and let me know what you think of the game and what you think of my videos. In any case, thanks again for watching and I wish you a great day.